We planned for 100 years in 1991, and for 5.5 million people, and try to keep, I would say, half of the tiny territory non-urbanized for future use, and just as well because in 1999 we had 3.2 million people. I thought we would not reach 5.5 till 2091. Guess what happened? It's already 5.4 million. So the lesson here is that try to make long-term plan. And key components, because I think one of the biggest stumbling blocks I see in urban planning, in physical planning, is what do you put into the plan? Because if you don't even know what you put into the plan, then how do you plan? And also, what is equally important is to have the basic design concept, the basic urban system. Any city can succeed if you plan properly. Singapore, when you go to that today, it looks as if we never had any problem before. Actually, we had lots and lots of problems. Many Chinese visitors go there and say, well, it's easy to plan Singapore. You know, look, everything is new. But you have to remember what was there before. Now, what is more important is the second part. There's some of the key principles behind this transformation. When you plan, you must know what you're planning. And second is what are the, because we're bombarded with all kinds of theories and ideas about what makes a city work now. So I'm trying to construct a urbanization universe and see how different parts fit into this universe. And then what is very important is after you have a good plan, you must, this is fortunately Singapore government managed to create a very efficient planning process for people like me to implement the plan. So in urban planning, maybe you start with building, then a cluster of building becomes precinct, cluster of precinct becomes neighborhood, and so on, until it becomes a city. And I'm giving each of these names a certain population size indication, like a city is 2.5 million people. But in Asia, we have a lot of mega cities. So I created this name called Constellation City, and this is about 5 to 20 million people. And even a name called Urban Milky Way is about 20, 30 million people. But on the other hand, Singapore is a small city. Unlike Delhi, if you are, okay, maybe let's see, if we don't have the region, that's the way city will look. That means if you cannot get what you want in the new town, you go straight to a CBD. So CBD gets very congested. But on the other hand, if we have a mega city, and between mega city and the new town, there's nothing else. So that means anybody who lives in a new town, when they need something, the new town cannot satisfy. It goes straight to a mega city center. That is the definition of heavy traffic congestion and the definition of polluted air. So personally, I feel that we should still have the region. We still have the cities, but a mega city is a collection of cities, and then that's how it's structured. And I'm hoping that the big cities in India would consider this. In the absence of this, this is the way a megacity would function. And in Beijing is like this, exactly like this. So in Beijing, they call the city plan is a city like a huge pancake. It's just one pancake that keeps growing and bigger and bigger and bigger. And of course, while the pancake grows bigger and bigger, traffic jam gets worse and worse, pollution gets worse and worse. And I think something we should try to avoid. The urbanization universe. What is the universe we live in when we talk about urbanization? First of all, you must have a willpower to do well. And you have just what we heard this morning. You must have legitimacy. You must have a good personal character. But you also must have willpower to set good vision and design good strategy. Then, after that, you should be willing to listen to experts, NGOs, business communities, and also gather data and idea and create your plan, your master plan. And then after you have a master plan, you have to quickly look into the infrastructure provision, even infrastructure planning, reserve the roads, the land space, and also design. And after that, maybe after you have a plan, then you have to do your staging. You have to first, I think the word anticipation is extremely important in creating a good city. That means anticipate the political climate, anticipate what the city needs, and try to pick the best project in the process. Project means based on the master plan, you pick the ones in the master plan that you should tackle first, not only in terms of a need, but in terms of political climate. And then do persuasion, convince the citizen that this is good for everybody, and then legislate. Okay. Now after that, maybe simultaneously you have to find ways to find land, and once you have the land, you can build. And but while doing all these things, technology will support infrastructure and the plan, will support legislation, because how you legislate depends on what technology you can make use of, support building design. Now I put technology here advisedly, because I want to emphasize that technology cannot solve all the problems preceding to it. It cannot solve all these problems. You have to get all these things right, and then use technology like additional tools. But if we pin all your hopes on technology, I don't think you're going to get a good city. This, I feel, is a very common misunderstanding. And if you can get this thing more or less done right, I think you enjoy good ecology, good environment. It's important to put in good education, economic prosperity. And personally, I feel that the highest goal in urbanization is to earn unqualified respect from people all over the world to your city. Okay, let's go to the rational planning process. That means set a vision, then you do step-by-step master plan, detailed plan, urban design. After you finish a master plan, look at infrastructure plan. And then when you do detailed plan, you look at detailed infrastructure plan. And then when you do urban design, the engineering design must come out. And then you legislate, you do promotion, as everybody would do, and then build. Now this is a kind of pretty typical and fairly good, I would say fairly good urban planning process. The vision, you must embrace the right value, and infrastructure to ensure that the city function. But you don't do infrastructure independent of the master plan. It has to be together with master plan. We talk about walkability, low carbon. Now our new town plan is to encourage walking, to encourage use of cycle, to encourage minimizing the use of cars to the city. So it is really the beginning of walkability, low carbon, mixed use development. And then, of course, we ensure the supply of land for other users besides housing, and also create home for everybody. Now, with all these things combined, it's hard for investor not to want to consider Singapore to invest and push our economic growth. So, but the reality is that many cities don't plan properly. They don't do infrastructure in a systematic way. They do a good job in marketing, but based on an inferior plan, so it's really not very effective. And of course, most cities do not have a comprehensive public housing policy. The critical success for the vision and strategy for the political leaders to consider. For the planners, on the one hand, you have to produce good master plan, good detailed plan. But at the same time, while you're doing that, you must consider the aesthetic aspect of the macro environment, the local environment, and urban design simultaneously. The skill requires is that the political leaders must understand the urban culture. The planners must know how to assemble this big living machine, and also have the heart to romance with the land. So in short, you have to have the right value, you have the scientific rationality, and also understand the arts. Now, for recognition, what we have done is that the population actually has increased, density has increased threefold. Don't ever use higher density as an excuse for inferior quality of environment. In Singapore, we managed to have both higher density and higher quality environment. The secret is in planning it properly. And in terms of the livability index, we have high density, also high livability. It's possible. And economically, we would benefit from it. This is from 1960 to 2013. It grew well. And if you combine the investment, payment to contractors, and payment for land acquisition and so on, well, we actually, HDB did play a very major role. So public housing, but today, because our tertiary industry and other secondary industry have done very well, therefore, construction sector now becomes less important, but in the early days it played a big role. In terms of GDP per capita, we've grown substantially. If you look at that in terms of number, 1960, our GDP per capita was, in US dollar, was about 400. Today, it's 52,000. It's higher than USA. I think Singapore government was a bit too preoccupied with the hardware and not enough time to look at the interaction with the NGOs and also explaining the government policy. So good work is important, but I think the word participation is not what I want to say, but it's important to have better communication with the people. I don't think a government or planner should abdicate his sacred responsibility to provide good plan, but you have to communicate better with the citizen. And I just want to say that despite this is a little bit of a downbeat note, I want to say that in Singapore, I meet a lot of good Indian friends, and they always say that Singapore is the best city in India.